Hey, Bayek, it's me, Ian, and in today's video, we're going to look at Doctor No from 1962. Now, why have I picked this? I have actually done previously a couple of Bond films of my favourite, which were You Only Live Twice and Die Another Day. Yes, hope you remember them. Especially Die Another Day. Yes. Anyhow, I thought, what am I going to do? It's the 60th anniversary. As if you don't know, it seems to have been everywhere. And I thought, well, I will do something, like they say. So, I thought, well, let's do a favourite film of mine. So, I'll start at the beginning. And this is a favourite film. And this is an important film for the whole Bond franchise because it lays the foundations and in many ways shows what Bond should be and what direction it should go in. And it became in many ways the blueprint for the whole franchise, even all these years later. All these years later, there are things in this film which are still there in the modern films. It's just, this is how important this film is. How many franchises of films can actually say that? It'd be very interesting to look at that because this film really is the blueprint of everything. Let me just talk a little bit about it, a background, and then look at it in perspective, right? So, well, let's say it's directed by Terence Young. Now, he went on to direct the follow-up, which was From Russia with Love, and then he did Thunderball, right? Thunderball. So, he did those two. It cost about $1.1 million to make, which wasn't really that a high budget for what you actually see in the film. This is another genius, considering what they put into these films as it became more successful. It did actually make, at the time, $59.1 million. If you look today, it's Rotten Tomatoes number, it's 95%, which obviously shows that it was recognized as quite an important film and enjoyed by the critics. Though at the time, it was actually received very mixed reviews. Not everybody could see what this was trying to do. It was often dismissed. Why is it that some critics have this certain... They dismiss things, but there we are. That's critics, isn't it? I mean, there we are. But as I say, now it really has been officially recognised as the importance. And of course, the lead role was taken by Sean Connery. Again, his performance was in many ways measured how Bond would develop. And I think when you look at Connery's performance, a lot of people would say he's perhaps not quite has the humour of, say, Roger Moore and that, but it is there, the humour. Even in this first film, there's just the odd bit of humour, and he's not this sort of dead serious character, all right? I mean, look at him right from the beginning, he always says, with Miss Moneypenny. Yes. Oh, Miss Moneypenny. She's there. Lois Maxwell played her. She's in this film, and she went on to play quite a few times. Also, Bernard Lee, yes, he played M, and he's in this film as well. So we've got the beginnings of all this, but there is that lighter side to Bond. But I would also say Connery does play him quite often in a very cold, ruthless killer way. And that's what the 007 License to Kill is, in fact. It's so you've got that contrast. And that's quite important, I think. And also, the other important point is that the leading lady, the actress, is also Andress, Swiss actress. Oh, is just so wonderful in the role. She oozes that appeal, that fantasy, sexuality, if you want it, at the time. Again, nowadays people say, "Oh, you can't," but that it's a different era, a different time, and it was so great to see Ali Berry pay tribute to Ursula Andress's performance. Because I always think of Ursula Andress in the brilliant film She. She is wonderful in that. Yes, there's a Hammer film connection coming up there. Yes. Anyway, I'm going off again. You know, I don't want you going off. Right, we're on Bond. That's where we're staying at the moment. Right. There's always a few other interesting things I found. The American CIA agent is played by Jack Lord. People go, Jack Lord, who's he? Well, in terms of TV history, he's very important because he's the one who goes, book him, Dano, Hawaii 5-0. Yes, the legendary Hawaii 5-0 of a cop show. That's him, yes. The main villain, of course, is played by Joseph Wiseman. Now, Joseph Wiseman plays Dr. Julius No. And he's the first supervillain, we can say. The first one. And he plays it really well. It has all the wonderful things that you want from that megalomaniac supervillain. And, just the fact of his hands, when he has them there, the mechanical hands. And, of course, he's Spectre as well. Immediately you start to paint a picture of this. Why this is what people don't always get about James Bond, is that James Bond isn't just a spy films, and because it does obviously with this release get lots of people doing spy films in the 60s. In the Cold War era, it's very popular, and there's some really good ones. But what elevates Bond, which I like personally, is that you get that more fantasy element about Bond, and the villains are very much part of that. And this wonderful, almost comic book organization, Spectre, who want to take over the world, control the world. Well, who doesn't, This is what makes Bond so great. I still say it, and that's what I do love about Bond. That it should. I understand that yes, you can go into more grittier reality aspects of Bond, and that's fine. But the whole point of Bond to me is this wonderful fantasy element, almost this escapism. You watch these films to enjoy all that, and also remembering the action. But the action mixes up really well, and we should never forget that is very much part of what people want from the films. And the supervillain is very much part of that, and brilliantly played. He lays it in, and this is great. Spectre, it's there. The foundations are laid. It's all there, and we love it. This is what we want. And of course, again, the other big part of Bond, the villain's base, where they are. This is all there in Doctor No. Beautifully done. There's so much great things in Doctor No and so many great scenes already. They've got these scenes, the action scenes are great. When we get to the island, and of course, when we see Ursa Andress come out of the water, wow, even Bond, he's genuinely knocked out by her. He sees her. She takes his breath away. Oh, yes, this is it. It's all there. And yet, she's also a very strong character as well. She can look after herself, and it's brilliant. I love it. And this is what Bond is about. And it works so well for this film. The whole story is great. It was filmed on location, quite a lot of it in Jamaica, and it adds to it. It's not... Bond also develops where it's going to different locations within the film, sort of a worldwide view. But this first one, it really works well when we go to Jamaica and these islands and everything about it. Is really great, and then the rest, I think, of the base and whatever were built at Pinewood Studios. From what I've read, very, very tight budgets, and some of the things that they had to do in building the sets, they had to be very ingenious. Like with Doctor Who, it's always a Doctor Who slips in. I know it's not Doctor Who, but on what they had to do on the money they had to be very creative, and they were. And look how good it looks. I mean, it looks great, the base and everything. Fantastic film. It really is. It all comes together beautifully. What I like about it is it gives me that nostalgia period about the 60s. You can feel it because it's past almost the sort of 1950s look, sort of almost duller as we're coming out of the post-war period. And this offers more like the sort of hope of the 1960s, but was still some of the worries and paranoia of the 1950s. And of course, the other connection, which I always love in the 60s, and Bond was great at doing it, was the space program, the space race. And this is part of the thing that is involved here, where they're trying to, Dr. No is basically trying to do an attack on Cape Canaveral and the launch of the space rockets. Wonderful stuff. And Bond revisited these themes a few times, and I love it. But the 60s, without the space race, it's all there, and that's another thing I love about the 60s. There's so many things about the 60s that you see in these films and reflected. It's really good. And of course, by the end of the decade, you're kind of seeing sort of more some of the disillusion that started to set in, even in Bond films. But it's taking it into a whole new era. But it works so well. And I think this film is a fitting film to start off the whole franchise. As I said, it lays the blueprint. And if you look at it as well, it set the whole genre about spy films up. I mean, there's loads of spy films that were sent up. And then it started to filter into the TV series. Look at something like Man from U.N.C.L.E. Absolutely brilliant TV series, Man from U.N.C.L.E. That was so iconic. And of course, that used some of the fantasy elements as well, which I absolutely loved. People trying to take over the world and just everything, the gadgets, which Bond, of course, is renowned for the gadgets as well. Not quite as much in this film, but as it develops, it did. But yeah, so we had that influence, and it even was recognised in comedy, even like in the Carry On films, Carry On Spying. It had the main villain in Carry On Spying was called Dr. Crow, and this is great. The leading lady was Daphne Honeypot, and it was played by Barbara Windsor. Barbara Windsor, the legendary Barbara Windsor, playing a Bond spoof, leading lady. It was just great. And they really camped it up, and it was so funny, Carry On Spying. It's an early Carry On film, and he's perfectly suited to this era, and he's just another spoof, an early spoof before Austin Powers of all these spy things. Well before Austin Powers, Yes. Anyhow. And the other great thing about Bond, it's Britishness. It's, it's good. I know we sound really patriotic now, but isn't it good for Britain to have its own franchise, its own heroes that America actually loved as well? It's really good. It was good for the British film industry. The British film industry needs Bond like it needed the Hammer films. I know we're at it again, but it's true. And Bond is so important in that. It really establishes our ability to produce these great films, and it's still going, as we know. So what can you say about that? I think it's wonderful. And the cultural significance side. Apparently, I didn't know this, but bikinis, in terms of fashion, were not very widespread at all. This film suddenly made bikinis fashionable and continue to be, because people saw Ursula Andress like this and went, wow. Yeah, and people got onto the fashion thing. So culturally, it spread out, as I said, in terms of the spy films. And of course, the music. We can't forget the music and some of the things that are used there. Right at the beginning, that opening is still used with the gun barrel and Bond and the music. And what about the famous Bond, James Bond? They still like to use that, and it's there in the first film when we see him on the I think it's in like a casino, and he's playing cards, and there he is. Wonderful stuff. Oh yeah, with the Dickie Bow and the just looking suave and sophisticated, and don't forget, shaken, not stirred martini. Yes, it's all there. It's all here in the first film. And it is a great film. I love it. I put it in my... If I was to pick 3 Connery films that I really love, it would be this one, Dr. No, Goldfinger, and You Only Live Twice. Absolutely superb. Top of the game films. And they were superb. Connery is a great Bond, without doubt. I know people will point at perhaps some of the weaker ones, which Thunderball is sometimes seen as weaker, and certainly Diamonds Are Forever, because people think that he's just there making the money, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. There's still a lot of good things in Diamonds Are Forever as well. But there we are. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm going on. The music, of course. Yes, the music. Monty Norman's theme, still played, iconic music. You hear that? James Bond. It's all here in this film. So, that's just my 60th anniversary tribute, and why, if you haven't seen this film, go and see it, and you'll understand James Bond much more than if you leap into sort of, I don't know, modern day Daniel Craig. But in modern day Daniel Craig, you will see what his roots are and where so many things come from. And it's all from here, this first film. So, that's it. That's me. You've had enough now. But you get fed up with Bond. Well, yes, anyhow, it's alright. So, all I've got to say is, as usual, subscribe, and we'll let you know when I'm putting out these videos. And you're thinking, oh, not another one. Yes, another one. And then, if you like it, please give this a like, because it helps other people, see that we're producing these videos and liking them, and it's all good. It's all good. And it's notes. It costs you notes. It's absolutely free. Free as anything. As I keep telling you. You're not listening. Now listen. Give it a like. It's free. Yes. Anyhow, all I'm going to say is, I'll see thee, and I'll see thee again.